I think that pauses can definitely change the course of history. I think like the biggest one in recent memory that I have that
Genji?
I am almost yes.
Okay. Genji
That is
DRX. Yeah,
Please
I agree.
explain. Yeah,
that
please
is
explain.
a
I don't have context for this one.
murder of so basically there was a 4-hour pause and I was live through all of it. Okay, casting. That was definitely my my trial as a caster, okay, in my career.
And you didn't make it. You quit the next year, man.
That was yeah, you know what? I just really couldn't I'm like, you know what? T1, listen. Like, you know, Oh geez.
Guys, what did you think of the semifinals? Let's start there. LS, yeah, you had the EGTL and 100 Thieves Cloud9 matches. What did you think of them?
I mean, I thought the Cloud9 100 Thieves games were pretty disastrous, and I thought actually the finals were looking like it was going to go almost the same way, in terms of Cloud9 just getting eviscerated in early drafts, and then game 1 and 2 just looked horrible. I really thought they were going to get 3-0'd.
In the 100 Thieves series, I feel like DeMonte is the person that like facilitates a lot of the early action. Obviously, Closer makes things happen, but DeMonte's ability to like follow up on those plays and when he's on roam champ, it seems like he has a good idea of playmaking as a mid laner. And in the last 2 games, they had a free TF pick. Obviously, they could play TF into Galio. In the game where they had set mid, they could have just put they had Galio support. They could have just put Galio mid and then give him more agency. I just feel like there was the option for 100 Thieves to just go with what works for them, play the roaming mid laners, play Galio, play TF, and win that series. And instead, they just went for, the DeMonte Rise. I think 2 of the last 3 games, and for me, it just feels like that's not what 100 Thieves does. DeMonte, I think he can be serviceable on mages, but I don't think that's their strength. So if the enemy team isn't banning out your roaming mid laners, I feel like you can just play the things that you're good at in this situation. I feel like 100 Thieves could have easily lane swapped in that game. They had Renekton top into Graves, and then they had Rise mid into Yone. And I feel like in this game, you can easily put Rise top versus Graves and then Renekton mid versus Yone, and you instantly have like way better matchups. And it felt like they weren't even trying to swap lanes there. And those are the types of things that I want to see more from LCS, is the ability to like read these situations. And even if you haven't practiced lane swapping or anything like that, being able to just do it on the fly, because I feel like it gives you such an advantage that you don't even need to be super practiced on it. Just the natural like advantage of your lanes is going to carry through there. And both your laners should be able to like, play these matchups. I feel like Graves into mages in general is pretty weak because you don't get MR. I mean, there's some mages you can push in. I mean, I assume that Graves could probably push in Rise early and stuff, but as the game goes on, Rise will just start being able to just control this lane a lot. And then Yone versus Renekton, I think is super hard for Yone. Maybe you don't have the kill potential on lanes that you do with like Renekton Nidalee top lane, but it still should be just a good enough lane that you're able to get advantages elsewhere. So instead of maybe playing for the gank, the Renekton Nidalee gank, you play for Renekton pushing in the Yone and invading onto the Udyr with Nidalee. And I think that's just an easier win condition to play to in this game.
Yeah, I mean, the swap should have been really standard. Renekton's one of Yone's matchups that he can't really handle. Aurelia is another one. Pantheon was also one. I imagine Pantheon still is. I mean, there's a couple of matches that Yone, even in mid lane, has a really hard time dealing with. So not seeing the swap is obviously problematic. I'm sure that they would cite something like, oh, I don't play that lane. I could see that being like maybe one of the arguments. Rise versus Graves. I mean, I can add, I guess, a little bit of context. Graves doesn't start getting value until much later on, because if Graves gets Vampiric Scepter, and he has the bloodline overheal, all that good jazz with fleet footwork, then it's just an econ war, like pretty much back and forth.
I think that this game was probably the worst 4 minutes I've seen in LCS, and I feel like this type of stuff is really easy to improve on. So yeah, let's get into it. So the pathing from Blabber, like I understand it. It's the most efficient, easiest path for Udyr here. My issue with this whole situation, and I'm gonna like up the time. I'm just gonna let's go 1.5 for this. My problem with this early game is like both junglers. People know where the junglers started most likely. In these situations, Udyr wants to start blue and path down. Obviously, this is the lane that he has the most kill pressure in as an Udyr. And if you see like Udyr pathing down and you see the Nidalee pathing up, it seems like both opposite lanes are not playing respectfully towards jungle pathing at all. So 100 Thieves should be thinking about like the 310 timing where Udyr is going to be done with his full clear. So we see Udyr clearing. He's going to be able to hit this 310 timing. Nidalee does a little bit of a deviation in her pathing, so maybe there's more of an excuse for Fudge here. But Millie ends up skipping the golem, so that ends up being good for her to hit a timing that maybe Fudge wasn't expecting. That being said, like if you look at Fudge's wave, I'm just going to pause right here. If you look at Fudge's wave, he should have either the wave shoved in a wave earlier, or he should like be letting controlling the wave to like potentially even freeze from early game, because you essentially just control this wave as Graves versus Renekton. So he could have pushed on wave 2, he could have pushed on wave 3. I feel like this is actually really bad, because if he's opening himself up to a gank, he's all the way pushed up through the lane and he ends up living here. But you'll see on the replay that this is just like a situation where you should die 100 times out of 100. So here we go. Both lanes misplay at the same time. So Nidalee actually thinks that there might be a ward in River. So this, we can see it on the minimap. Jesus Christ. Renekton flash stuns the 1.5 second Fury stun, and Closer somehow misses the spear on the stun target. Fudge is 100% dead here if the spear lands. And Closer's the type of jungler that won't miss a spear. This is a freak occurrence that allows Fudge to even live. The fact that he lives here makes no sense. But then at the same time, look at FBI and Huhi. They have to know that the enemy jungle is in their lane or going for crab, and the wave is just sitting here, and they just die to the gank that they know is coming. So for me, I just don't know how this stuff is happening, because I feel like this is just the easiest part of the game. You know, this is straight from solo queue. Enemy jungler started topside. Okay, they're gonna hit my lane at like a 310, 315 timing. So somehow both the timings for both junglers work out. And then here, Blabber obviously showed and killed bot lane. They know that Blabber's going to take crab after, and Damonte is just sitting hugging the side of the lane that Blabber can come from, and somehow he's mismanaged his mana in this lane, because he's literally 0 mana with the wave crashing on Rise versus Yone. So either he needed to back a TP or wave earlier, or he probably just wasted mana trying to CS or trying to trade when he shouldn't have. So if I play it now, he ends up dying too. So all this should be like completely avoidable. Like I feel like none of these 3 plays actually should work, but they all ended up working from a jungle perspective. That like it feels solo queue-esque to me, where your advantages should come from like the fact that Udyr clears faster than Nidalee, so you can crab faster, you can base, you can get like tempo in that regard, and maybe you can turn that into like a dragon around like 5 or 6 minutes. That's the window where I feel like if both teams are playing well, you can get an advantage with this pick. But instead, Udyr's just 2-0 at 3 minutes, 50 seconds. And yeah, he's just way far ahead of the curve. I mean, we can go more in depth in this game. I don't know where you want to jump in, LS. But for me, the one thing I want to show at least is this. I'm going to click. Let's just go to 23 minutes. So you're playing into 2 shield bow champions. You're playing into Udyr, which has natural sustain from Turtle, and you're playing into Seraphine Taric. And somehow you have no healing reduction on the whole team of 100 Thieves. This was boggling my mind, man. I couldn't handle this. How does no one have any healing reduction? How does Kai'Sa not have like an Executioner's Calling or something? Why doesn't Rise just pick up a Oblivion Orb? The whole enemy team heals. It actually triggered me so hard. So I don't know, man. I mean, C9 ends up losing this game through some bad plays, but I feel like the early game and then the decision to not buy healing reduction when there's so much healing in the game right now. Like healing is broken right now in League of Legends. Not seeing any healing reduction just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, yes. This is one of the weirder. This is where people are, they're taking the Morello hate from last year to heart. I don't know what to really. I mean, yeah, this one's really weird. I mean, I guess I want to go back to the beginning. Udyr should never start blue.
What do you mean never?
Like, you should never start blue. It has nothing
period?
to. I mean, at the very start of the game, you shouldn't start blue.
I think starting blue is pretty good on Udyr. Why do you think it's not good to start blue?
Because Graves versus Renekton is a naturally winning lane, and Seraphine versus Tarik's one of the strongest bot duos on their own. But the way that waves 1, 2, and 3 plays out in bottom lane, they can't prevent cheater recall against Kai'Sa and Alistar. So if Kai'Sa and Alistar play correctly anyway, Udyr has no value pathing bottom, but if he paths top lane, then Graves gets the cheater reset for free. And then Graves, or Graves can stay in lane wave 4, and then Udyr gets left side crab. And then he protects Graves. And if you protect Graves, then Renekton can't play.
From my perspective, I feel like if the Graves, like I'm not sure how impressive the lane should be. I would assume that when you play Renekton, and like this isn't even a Renekton that's playing to survive lane, right? Like you could obviously play with like Door and Shield and stuff so that you pretty much can just like go down a small amount of CS, but you won't ever get killed. I feel like starting blue is actually not bad because the first clear is just going to be whatever, but on the second clear, you're going to be able to potentially pressure Dragon depending on how the Yone matchup goes. And you can, and yeah, I mean, if Graves gets a natural lead, like I don't know if Graves just can't control the wave, but I feel like in the situation, Fudge can play the wave so that it's in front of his turret and he can't be dove. It feels like every time somehow Fudge just ends up in the worst situations with his lane state. So I'm not sure if it's just disconnect with him and his jungle, but for some reason, his lane is always like right outside the enemy turret, not completely pushed in when the enemy has a gang timing.
When is just to clarify, LS, what is a cheater recall? Like specifically waves, and what are you looking at when you call a
cheaters
recall?
when you cheaters when you pile wave 1, 2, and 3 in such a way that you crash it onto the turret and get a free base, because opponents don't have enough damage to clear the wave and then push back wave 4. Before wave 5 would arrive.